Hey, hi, how are you? My name is Felt, and welcome back to Final Fantasy XIV. Today, we're going to be talking about music in 14. Now, this is a bit of a different video for me, so stay with me. If you don't know me very well, if you've only been introduced to my content through 14 and not through my streams where I talk a lot more about myself at large over there, twitch.tv/feltcard0945, I am a musician. I've played saxophone for years. I am a singer to some degree. You've heard some of that here on the channel. That's typically meme-worthy, but still, I have the ability to carry a tune. And I also play guitar, and I have played that for well over a decade at this point. So I have a musical background, so music in games is really interesting to me. And today we're going to be talking about music from Shadowbringers in particular. I'm hitting you with a hot, spicy spoiler warning. If you have not beaten Shadowbringers, you may not want to watch this video. We'll be talking about story beats from Shadowbringers. I'm going to be talking about different areas from Shadowbringers from the very end of the story campaign, missions, MSQ, whatever you want to call it. And on top of that, I'm going to be talking about stuff that might even have Endwalker spoiler potential, and I'm not going to hold myself back. So this has been your spoiler warning. If you are not caught up with all of the story in the game at this point in time, you may not want to watch this video, because it will have spoilers, because I like talking about the in-game impact and context of the music, as well as the actual music itself. Alright, so with all those warnings and all these preambles out of the way, let's hop into the video and talk about this track, why it's one of my favorites, and why I find it to be so impactful. Alright, so I do apologize for what will probably be the music cutting in and out at weird times. I'm just kind of letting the music play in the background as I talk about this stuff. Well, let's just talk about story context. I give you your spoiler warning, so now you can see where I really am standing if you didn't realize it already. I'm standing down in Amarot, the place where this song plays, and this song is effectively the closest we get to a general theme for the Ancients. It's reused again in Endwalker on the Moon. I warned you that there would be spoilers if you didn't believe me. But let me talk about the context of the story as to how we come down here. If you notice this is the underwater section of the first. This is where the Sagili of the first exist in their place, and way down here is Amarot, and the city, and all that it entails. So we just came down here after a really brutally painful, emotionally impactful part of the story. We had just finished off all the Light Wardens. We had just taken all of the light into ourselves, and we had realized that it was essentially too much for us, even someone as powerful as us, and we were essentially losing the fight. And we were having someone who was going to help us win the fight. In a way. Kind of. It wasn't really the best plan, Grahatia. It wasn't really your best work. But regardless, that plan doesn't even go through, because he then immediately gets kidnapped by someone who's been a villain for forever in this game, Emmett Selk. And so we are struggling with dealing with this light literally trying to force its way out of our body. We're dealing with the fact that someone who is an old friend of ours, who had been kind of our guidance, mentor, only connection to our home here in the first, outside of our Scion friends. We have to deal with him being kidnapped, and we have to deal with all of this stuff, and it's a really emotional part of the story. And you come down here, and you do some exploring, you find out, oh, the Ancients, the Ascients, they were here. And then you come down and you see this city. Now, Eorzea is not this advanced. Everyone should know this. Eorzea is essentially at, as far as like high end of technological advancement goes, I'd probably say steampunk is a pretty good way of referring to it, because while the Garleans are a bit more magically bereft, and so they have advanced technologically a bit more, even so, it's not really quite up to modern standards, what we consider to be modern. Everything seems really clunky and very odd. So then you come down here and you see something that is incredibly reminiscent of a modern day city. These buildings look like they could fit in any skyline in any major city in the world. These structures feel like modern art that you could find from anywhere in the world. It feels out of place in Eosia, and especially the first. And it's just incredible. It's an incredible view, it's an incredible transition, and this song starts playing when you finally start seeing it. This song going in the background right now, Neath Dark Waters. And it's an incredible choice. It was an incredible choice to not make it some crazy, grandiose musical piece. It was a choice to make it calm, laid back. A piece of music that is only effectively a lone piano with some minor accompaniments of a watch ticking on occasion. Oh, that's what it sounds like to me. And occasional strings being added on top of it. This is essentially a piano solo piece. Something very calming and relaxing. It was a very, very, very conscious choice to make something so relaxing be the piece for such a big reveal. Because you, the player, needed it. The choice to make this so relaxing is because you, the player, needed to have relaxation. Needed to have something bringing you back down and bringing a little bit of calmness and comfort to what has been a massive story arc that has been going insane for the past 20 MSQs. So let's talk a little bit more about contextually why I find that choice to be so good. It is a very grandiose piece, but it's not a very excitement-fueled, it's not a very aggressive piece. It's very slow, it is very melancholic. And it really fits the context, it really fits the area, especially once you figure out more and more and more about this city, that you realize that this is essentially the capital, so to speak, of the Ancients' world. This is where Convocation was, this is where a lot of their biggest research facilities could be, and it's very melancholic because you are feeling all this melancholy and these feelings of loss for something that could have been and never was because of some ancient tragedy that befell the Ancients and forced them to do what they did to try and survive somehow. And it's trying its best to make you feel that way. Trying its best to emotionally impact you to become sympathetic to the Ancients. That's why stuff like this is why Emmett Selk is viewed as such a sympathetic villain, and I don't think a lot of people realize it. That you go through a massive portion of the game finding out the backstory of this essentially genocidal maniac by seeing about his loss. But it's not just seeing about its loss, it's seeing about his loss with a piece of music in the background that is almost forcing you to feel melancholic and forcing you to feel sorry for what's happened to these people. This wasn't really anything that they controlled, that happened out of nowhere. The context you're given is that their creation magics, the magics they used to make things, to do their day-to-day activities, started running rampant and causing problems, and there was nothing that they could do about it. It was an unforeseen tragedy. And this music just drives that point home. Let's talk about the musical choices now. I've talked a lot about the context and the emotional impact and the video game implications and the story implications. Let's talk solely about the music now and about the choices. Let's talk first about how they made the piano sound, because this is something that I feel like could often just get dismissed out of hand, that I feel like was such a wonderful... Did you know that words are hard to say? We do these live, by the way, in case you can't tell. It's such a wonderful decision to make the piano sound like this. It is a very moderately echoey piano with just a bit of sustain. A bit so that when you hit the chord, it naturally fades out, but it fades out a little quicker than it should. Enough to leave the impact, but not enough to stay around longer than it has to. And the melody is single chosen notes. If you listen to it in the background, you can hear it. Da, 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 da. It's very, very easily singable, hummable, gets stuck in your headable, and that's the point. It's a very simplistic melody. The whole point of this is to be an earworm. It's to really get in there, and that's why these chords fade out and get out of the way of the melody. It's a great compositional choice. You're giving the melody a basis for where it's operating, the notes that it's probably going to be playing around with these sustained low chords. God, this right here is just beautiful. The way that it builds up, and the melody finally stops being single notes. And they finally start making it have more notes in the melody, but then you realize it's not more notes, it's the same notes. They're octaves. They're the same note, an octave apart. It's the same tones being played to really drive this melody home. It's an emphasis. It's not trying to change how the melody is being told to you. It is emphasizing how important this part of the melody is. It's gorgeous. That build-up, that crescendo, and then just calmly falling back down to letting it loop back around to the very beginning is just... chef's kiss. Beautiful stuff. The performance given to this song is also beautiful. I wish I could have seen how they recorded this. Wish they could have seen, or like just been in the room when they were recording the piano part. I wish I could have seen how they mic'd up the piano, how they recorded it all, or if they used electronic tools to assist them in this way. I just wish I could have seen it. It would have been... Ooh. Audio nerd and me is geeking out. I love stuff like this. Let's talk about one last thing before I wrap this video up, and that is just the general softness of this song. Even during the big moments, it's not an impactful or bombastic or in-your-face choice. It is still restrained, it is still held back. Even if you can tell that there's impact, force in these notes that are being played, it's still not aggressive. It still has that same melancholic feeling. It still makes you have a bit of that sadness in your chest, a bit of that feeling of loss. Somehow, some way. Now, I'm going to end this by clarifying that a lot of what I've said is completely interpretive to how I feel about this music. This music might have impacted you a different way. This music might have made you feel a different way. Feel free to leave comments about that below. Feel free to open up a dialogue with me about this song. I love discussing music. I love discussing how things were made, how it makes you feel, and especially video game music, because it has an extra layer of it's trying to make you feel a certain way to fit context of a story that's being told, the same way that I enjoy film scores are operating the same way. But that's going to be the end of this. This was something very, very different for me, and I'm kind of putting myself out there a bit by trying to make a video talking about music. As someone who is essentially mostly just a fan of music, and often just records the music for other people and doesn't write it a lot themselves because they are still very inexperienced at that. However, that doesn't stop me from wanting to share how I feel and how I view these things. I hope you share with me how you view these things as well. Thanks for hanging out and watching. If you liked this video, please leave a like. If you didn't like it, feel free to leave a dislike. If you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button. Regardless of all of that, thanks for hanging out and watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.